PTZ cameras are getting smarter and smarter, and of course, being 4K, you'll be able to do a lot of different things with it. Case in point, this guy right here, this is the TongVeo. It's a 4K NDI PTZ camera, AI auto tracking 20x optical zoom with HDMI, with NDI, with USB, with SDI. It gives you everything that you need to do a stream, whether you're just doing a single camera stream or hooking it into a system with multiple cameras and doing the whole switching thing. We're going to unbox this and we're going to take a look at the TongVeo and then, of course, see how it works. And we're going to do that next on Geekazine. What's up, my geeks? Jeffrey Powers from Geekazine, Think Magazine, put in a geek. TongVeo did send me the product to take a look at, but they're not sponsoring this video. All opinions are my own. Over at geekazine.com/review is where you want to go to read all that information. If you've got a product that you want me to take a look at, all you have to do is contact me down below. I love my Patreons and I thank them for being a part of the channel. If you'd like to be a Patreon, all you have to do is go over to patreon.com/geekazine, or if you'd like to just tip me one time, that's over at venmo.com/geekazine. All right, let's take a look at this thing, the TongVeo 4K NDI PTZ camera. It is a simple PTZ camera. Let's go ahead and open it up. Let's see what we got in here. As you can see, we've got the packaging right here, and we've got two side boxes. I think the easiest thing is just to pull out this foam first of all. I'm expecting that we're going to see a PTZ camera very similar to the other ones that I've unboxed in the past. We have two boxes full of stuff. And then I think that's it for this box right here. There's the camera right there. We're noticing it's more of a, well, hexagon base, but it's a lower profile base. It's not pulling out like their older versions of TongVeo PTZ cameras. So got a little bit of foam right here that stabilized the camera, and it does look like we have a camera hood on there, cap, lens cap. So there we are. There's the camera right there. Fairly straightforward PTZ camera. As you can see, got some film on there. Let's take that off. And then we're going to take a look at that in a second, but let's see what's in these boxes first of all. We'll open up box number one, and inside we've got the remote control. It's pretty sturdy remote control, and just like all the other PTZ cameras, it can control up to 4 different cameras. So if you do a multicam situation, you can use one remote for that. We've got a USB cable. This is a powered B to USB A right there in that box. In the secondary box, all right, this should be the power supply. Yes, we do. It's a standard, it's like a 12-volt power supply here. Yes, it's a 12-volt 2-amp power supply. It's actually a little bit smaller than the power supplies I normally get with these types of cameras. So that's good, but keep that in close by. Then, of course, we have mounting screws, and they come, and this is recently, PTZ cameras started coming with the plates, so you kind of fix it to a wall and put it up. In years past, these plates would cost you $200–300, and it's really nice to actually have the plates in with the product. So I applaud them for doing that. Let's take a look at the camera itself. On the front here is just basically the indicator. So we'll probably have a standby light here, power light. Nothing on the side, nothing on the bottom. Of course, it just basically is a standard PTZ camera. On the bottom, we do have a 1/4-inch screw mount there for a tripod or anything like that, but we don't have any type of dip switches or anything like that on the bottom. Let's take a look at the back of this thing. From left to right, we have the DC power 12-volt 4-amp. We have the RS485 jack, and of course the RS232 jack. What was missing from the box was usually you get a cable for this, but you know, these are here for backwards compatibility. A lot of people don't use these anymore. If you still use them, that's great, and there's still a lot of good reason to have that, but of course you'll have to get your own cable. Next up, we have the USB port, so you can plug it directly in the computer and use it just like a webcam would. We have an HDMI port. We have a Ethernet jack port for NDI, and this is an NDI HX, by the way. And then, of course, the SDI port right there. And the cool thing about this is these types of cameras, you could usually do more than one output at a time. So you can have it plugged into the HDMI and through the network for a NDI or SDI. That way, if you want to record to two separate areas, you can do so. Let's go ahead. I'm going to plug it in. This is power over Ethernet, so I don't need to have that 12 volt 4 amp power. I'll have it in the case just in case, but I can plug it into a PoE switch and be able to power it on. And that's what I'm going to do next. All right, let's talk for a minute here about AE Juice. I am now an affiliate of AE Juice, in where I'm taking this content and making my videos better, and you could do the same thing too, from LUTs to sound effects to transitions to even AI elements and a lot more. You can bring a ton of stuff in. You're seeing that as we're going. You can check that out over at geekazine.com/AE Juice for the free starter pack. Of course, there's many other packs over at AE Juice. You can check that out over there, but geekazine.com/AE Juice. Now let's get back into the content. We'll get plugged in through the PoE, and of course, as you can see, it just started up. We're getting some flashing lights right here in multiple colors, and it's going through all its tests, looking pretty good. Back and forth, up and down, left and right. We're at power light and standby light. Both of these are blue lights, so we're good to go. This is on the network, so now we can go over to a program to take a look at what we're seeing on the camera. So I plugged it in and I completely forgot about these cameras. It's something that I've talked to them about, and they say that they're going to change, but there might be a firmware update that we need to do. But the problem is, if you plug this in using USB, it's going to work fine. No problems whatsoever. If you plug this in using HDMI and you're using the remote or whatnot, no problem whatsoever. However, if you're using NDI, this assigns an IP address. In this case, it's 192.168.0.220. And the frustration is the only way that you can change this should be set to DHCP by default. And there are some PTZ cameras that you can use the remote. You'll go to network and you'll say turn DHCP on, and boom, now you're in your network and you can go from there. However, this is where the frustration comes in. The only way to configure this camera on the network, if you are not on the 192.168.0 network, is you have to go and create your own network. You can do it on a Mac and a PC, of course, and Linux for that matter, but it's frustrating because now you have to set up your own IP address in there. Once again, not difficult to do, but if you're trying to set up a camera for the first time and you don't know this information, that can really frustrate you as you go. So what I have here is I have set up my MacBook, and so I have a Ethernet adapter into my MacBook Air, and then of course that's set up to 192.168.0.1 with a mask of 255.255.255.0, and then of course simple cable that goes straight to the TongVeo. And when that happens, you can go to the IP address 192.168.0.206 and you can log in. Log in is simply admin for the first time. That takes you to this page. So now what you have to do is you have to go over to network, and inside this network it says a static IP. Hit the drop down and change it DHCP, and then hit submit. It's set up successfully, and now it's going to get its own IP address. It'll probably default to 206 if you don't have it connected up. So now I can turn off this computer. I can hook this up to my network and let DHCP handle this so I can give it a proper IP address. All right, so after a little bit of pain and frustration, I did get it to work. We had to reset the camera and then set it to DHCP a couple times, and then finally I was able to get a proper IP address. So now I'm on my network, which means I can go to the page that shows you everything, and that's this page right here. Looking pretty decent, a little bit washed out, but we haven't changed anything with it yet. So as the front interface, we have the home, we have an image, we have tracking, we have video, we have network, NDI settings, and system. Let's go through those before we start to control anything. We'll go over to image. Image, this is where we're going to change everything. Let's hit the default. Let's see what happens. We can say we've got the ability to flip horizontally or vertically. It does not look like, it might not have it. I'll have to actually physically turn the camera, but some of these do have sensors. This does not have any type of sensors inside there. I know there's some PTZ cameras that if you flip it upside down, it'll actually notice that and then adjust for that, but you'll have to do that manually. It's not a big deal. We also have a graphic style, and it says standard, PC, or beautiful. If we hit beautiful, it would give probably a little bit more vibrance out of that. If we go PC, we'll probably get a little bit more blue light out of that. And then of course, standard, just standard. We can change the brightness from here. As you can see, it's fairly instantaneous. So we'll turn that down. We'll turn the contrast right about here. And we're going to leave that at that. We got exposure. If we want to set the auto exposure, manual, say AAE, or brightness. We usually do manual. Now it's gotten really dark, so we're going to hit the defaults. That on the image itself. So we're saying if the shutter is 1/30th. I usually do 60 frames a second when I do my videos, so it's got to be multiples of 60. So we can do 60 or 120. It doesn't offer a 120. It has a 125, so we'll do that. But we can also do 60. We'll just do 60 for now. And then, of course, we got to change our flicker mode to 60 hertz. There is no auto feature for that. It's just 50, 60, or off. So we're going to do 60. And I think the default, let's see what the default says. Yeah, default goes back to auto and 50. Then, of course, we can adjust the gain from here and bring it in so it looks somewhat decent. There we go. We do have an iris that we can change, and then we'll adjust the gain a little bit more. We have a color mode, we have auto, we have manual, we have variation, indoor, outdoor, and one push. We'll just go to manual to begin with. And as you can see, I'm very green in this. We'll turn up the red. And so they have a red and a green gain. So that's usually red and blue. But it's basically, if you slide it all the way, it's green. If you slide it all the way, the other way, it's blue. So we'll make some adjustments there. Pretty set up on the manual. We can go to variation, and we'll have the white balance color temperature. I usually set that to about 4,300, which is a little bit blue in this case. So we'll probably bump it up to maybe 4,800. There we go. We get a little bit more color into that. So that's a different way to do it. We got indoor, which is going to make us very blue. And then we have outdoor, which is going to make us very yellow. Actually, I do like the default for outdoor, which is really nice. And then, of course, we have the one push where it's supposed to analyze the whole thing and then give us a color. You're supposed to also have a piece of white paper in front of it, but, you know, we're just going to do that. I don't see a button for pushing one push here, which is interesting. And then as you can see on the menu bar, we have the brightness, the contrast, the hue, the saturation. But I don't see a white push button. So what we're going to do is we're going to send this back to probably manual. And I'll do some adjustments to make it look somewhat tolerable. There we go. That looks okay. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Next up, we have the tracking options. This is the AI feature of the camera. So now we can set it up to track. We can turn it on. We can do the presenter track or the auto framing. You can also do this on the remote. There is a button that says AI right there. I know it's not focusing in, but it says AI right there. That allows you to turn that on. We're going to go through the app here. Let's go presenter, and we're going to hit on. And now it's saying presenter tracking, and that went away. And we have a blue box, and we have a blue box here. But the real question is, do we have a blue box here? And look at that's the live presenter. This is through HDMI. And as you can see, we have a blue box here, which is unfortunately unuseful, because if it's creating a blue box around the presenter that we can see, then I can't use that for any type of video because it's going to show this blue box. You press this button right here. It's on the left side of the remote, and that's going to set up your presenter. So if you're switching presenters, you'll want to do that. I probably grab Simon and test this. But once you have that set up, then you hit this button on the other side, and then it starts to auto frame, and then it'll move with it. It's very clunky, but that is what they have now. So hopefully they can fix that. Plus, I don't see any way to adjust it. I'm trying to use the PTZ camera to kind of get rid of this head space right here, because really my head should be here. We should have a little bit of head space. My head at least should be in the middle of the shot, but instead it's on the lower third of the shot. Let me walk away a little bit. Yeah, what I should be expecting is that my head should be right about here, not down here, because right now it's tracking wrong, and I would probably not be using this for AI tracking. I don't normally use AI tracking in these PTZ cameras, maybe to get it close to the person and then turn it off and do the final adjustments, because then I can just hit the off button and then make the adjustments. So I should technically be right here. Plus, I don't know if you noticed that, but it's saying AI on, AI off. Once again, this should be the clean feed. There should be nothing coming through this through an HDMI or an SDI. Is this a deal breaker for you? Let me know in the comments below. Let's move on from here. We got video. And of course, with the video settings, it's going to tell us our H.264, what type of resolution we want. Right now, our mainstream looks like we can do a mainstream of 1080p. And then the secondary stream, we can also probably do, no, we can only do 720p for that secondary stream. And then the video output right now says 1080-30, but we should be able to go, yeah, we should be able to go up to 4K 30. So that will force, and we can also choose auto as well, but we could hit force, and then my video, which probably, yeah, it disappeared and came back. There, we now have it recording at 4K, which is, it actually looks a little bit cleaner. Then let's go back to 1080p. Let's see how that works. So we'll go 1080-60. There we are. Now notice how I'm closer. This is fully zoomed out. The camera is about 2 feet away from me. So switching back over to 4K 30. There we go. All right, we flipped it over and I bumped it over. Your LAN settings, that's where you switch between your DHCP and your static address. We got the ONVIF settings, which we can set up. We have RTSP settings. We can turn on and off the ONVIF. That's the only protocol that we can use to do a remote edit, a remote control. Well, actually that, and then I'm pretty sure that NDI will probably have controls as well. RTSP settings, we can set that up if we want to view it via a web page. RTMP settings, we can enable that if we're sending it out to something like a vMix or any type of streamer. And SRT settings as well. So let's say we're using this as the on-scene reporter camera that you're taking to the client site. And so you set that up, you set the SRT settings, and then you set the port. Let's just turn it on. So the port and the password, and be able to send it out there. We'll test that a little bit later. But as you can see, it does have the RTMP option and the SRT option for setting it up. We've got NDI settings, which is going to tell us what type of NDI we have. We're using HX2. We can change the name of the NDI group and the discovery services if we're connecting up to a server. And of course, we put in the server IP address and all that other stuff. But right now we've got, that's just set up to the defaults. Finally, we got the system. We got the information where we can change the name of the device camera. We can set up the date and time where if it's coming from a network, if we're connected up to a network, then we can get network time through the internet, through the time zone. We've got user information. This is where we can set up different profiles. So you can have somebody that has their own set of settings. If you need to, we've got the initialize option if you just want to reset that. And the online upgrade, when a new firmware file comes out, you'll put it in here and you'll have it submit, and probably some of these settings will change. But ultimately, this is the setting area. We have on the right, you'll see the PTZ control. Pretty straightforward. We can drop down and call up our menu. which is the on-screen menu. So you'd be seeing it on screen as well. We've got the zoom in, zoom out with the speeds for the zoom and the pan tilt. We got presets that we can do. Of course, if you create a preset, we'll add a preset. We'll do 1 and we'll name it 1. What the hey? We'll say okay. So now we can select the preset 1 and we can call it up. We've got focus options here we can do an auto and manual focus. I always like to start auto, get it nice and focused in, and then hit manual. And then that will force it to whatever it needs to be. So we can choose our AF sensor, a high sensor, our zone being the center usually. And then of course the scene, which is we can set up a macro apparently. I'm not sure how we do that, but it has an option for a macro there. So that's all the functionality on here. And then the end result is this image right here. Now I'm going to go set it up next to my main camera so we can go and do a back and forth shot back in, and I'm looking at my regular camera, which is a 1080p camera, and of course the TongVeo is a 4K camera. By the way, the TongVeo is a Sony 2.8 inch CMOS inside there, and of course offers a 20x optical zoom in this case. What we're going to do is we're going to switch back and forth. So right now I'm looking at my camera, which I'm pointing to. That's the other camera over there, and we're going to switch to that right here. So now we're on the regular camera. I brought Simon in on this so I can show you the AI feature I was telling you about. But anyway, so this is what it looks like through this camera, and then my regular camera is right there, so you can see the difference. So let's go ahead, we'll cut back, and I'm back to this camera, and we'll cut to the TongVeo, and now we'll do you a side by side. So TongVeo is on the right side, and my camera, my regular PTZ camera, is on the left side. So you can see that although we're never going to get a full color match on this because they are two different sensors, we've got a pretty good difference between the two, especially since the TongVeo can do a frame rate of 125, whereas the camera I'm using, the one on the left, can do a frame rate of 120. So we've got fairly close. I mean, it's a little bit darker on the TongVeo side, and I suppose if I work on that a little bit harder, I could probably get that image. The original camera, the camera I use, is not going to change whatsoever. This camera is what we're changing to try and match it. So as you can see, it's a little bit darker than on my camera. And of course, this is sending out a 4K image into this system, whereas this is sending out a 1080p image to the system. So as you can see, not too bad. I did bring Simon in so I could show you how that worked. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll flip over to here. And now we will take it and we will turn on the AI mode. There we go. And it says auto framing. You can see that it's sitting, the blue box is sitting around Simon right now. But if I do this, now it's around me. So if I go to presenter, then it's around me, and then I can hit the button that's following me as we go. But if I go back to presenter and then I switch it back over to Simon, now when I go to auto framing, if I move Simon around, it will adjust to Simon. It won't adjust to me. So that's how that works. And then of course we can turn all of that off. There we go. I'm not a big fan of the AI pushing the camera all the way out. I'd like to zoom it in and have it set on that zoom and then do the AI from there. And so that's another reason why I probably wouldn't be using the AI on these cameras. But when it comes to PTZ camera, not too many of the cameras I have are set for AI. I'd like to set the camera, and if the person seems to move out of frame, then I'll have to deal with it with somebody with a joystick, just kind of manning it and putting it back and forth. I've done that thousands of times, so it's not a big deal to get that going. And of course, there's the TongVeo. Let's zoom this out so you can see where it is in the studio. You see the other camera right next to it right there. And then of course my monitors, I'm over here, there I am, right there. So, but as you can see, it's a pretty good distance away. So if we're doing in-studio stuff, it's great. Of course, I would also use this in the back of a small theater or anything like that. In fact, I have done that. I went out, and of course, every other Monday night, I do what's called a music industry night, where musicians come and play. I use the TongVeo to just get an idea. I still haven't set it up with my Stream Deck yet and figured out the Visca controls on there, but for the most part, it looks like I'll be able to do that and not a problem. I haven't tried it outside, but this is more of an indoor camera than it is an outdoor camera. So situations like this is where this camera will shine its best. But you can definitely try it outdoors and see what it looks like for you. Let's talk price for a quick second here. The TongVeo 4K NDI PTZ camera is up on Amazon for about $459. You can also get a 1080p version of this camera that doesn't have SDI to it, just has HDMI and USB, and it might even have NDI to it, but that's about half the price to this. This is actually comparable to cameras in this market of this type, so it does match. And so if you're looking for something to put up into a studio, something to put up in your church or your lecture hall or whatnot, then this will be adequately priced. And of course, at 4K video, 4K 30 frames a second, it'll be a great addition. You can't technically stream from the camera. However, with the RTSP, the RTMP, and the SRT functionality, you can use the network and the NDI functionality. You can use the network to send it to a computer that will then send it out to YouTube, Facebook, or whatever. You can also record it onto the computer. Anyway, that's the TongVeo camera from TongVeo. You got any questions? What do you think? What do you think of the camera? Let me know in the comments below over at geekazine.com, youtube.com/geekazine. Like, subscribe, and of course that bell notification so you know when the next video comes out. Until next time, my name is Jeffrey Powers. Thanks a lot for watching. You guys geek out and stream on with TongVeo.